Hello, welcome to Ticket to Qatar. I'm Tracey Holmes in Doha. Today we look back on what has been a World Cup of surprises in so many ways. Heavily criticised in the West ahead of time, Qatar has delivered a tournament that will be spoken about for many years to come. Today we look at the World Game through the prism of religion. We speak to the one Australian who is still here until the final whistle, front and centre of everything that's taking place. And of course, we'll look at the Final Four and what they've given us as spectators here at this World Cup. That's all to come after the news. With the exception of the Final Four, FIFA has published the finishing positions of all 32 nations, and Australia finished 11th. No matter how the Final Four plays out, Morocco is in many ways the story of this World Cup, beating Belgium, Spain and Portugal on the way to a date with the defending champions France. And from the start, they warned us.
The Moroccan guy is coming! Oh, the Moroccan guy is coming!
It has also been a World Cup of protests, some more successful than others. Perhaps the greatest legacy will be the significant changes to labour laws in Qatar, as well as the successful hosting of an event where for the first time for many Africans, Arabs and Muslims, they felt like the World Game was a place where they too belonged. In a country where state and religion are not separated, religion was always going to play a part in this World Cup. But how so? Eleni Soltis has more.
After a month of World Cup mania, it's easy to understand why football is considered a religion. Millions of faithful fans follow the beautiful game. And for the masses, the stadium is the house of worship. And to join, one's never too young. And like in any church, there are moments of prayer, moments of gratitude. There are those who believe in miracles, and those regarded as saints or prophets. Also in the house of worship, there are those who lose their crown. With so many people following the World Game, football has long been a broad church. And with the first World Cup in the Middle East drawing to a close, there are new things to think about, including what is religion's place in football. For years, FIFA has been able to dictate to nations the terms of hosting the most watched sporting event in the world. In Brazil, it's illegal to sell or consume alcohol in stadiums. This was a measure in part to address the record number of deaths linked to football violence there. But money talks. And in 2014, when the World Cup returned to South America, FIFA pressured Brazil to set aside these safety measures. Budweiser pays FIFA tens of millions of dollars to exclusively sell its beer at the World Cup. But Qatar is a conservative Muslim nation, and with religion a major consideration in this tournament, FIFA has lost some of its control. And Budweiser was in the crossfire.
Well, this is awkward.
Even France's star forward Kylian Mbappe has been deliberately hiding Budweiser's name in his man-of-the-match photographs, with the brand's logo on the trophy turned away from the cameras. Mbappe has specifically stated in his image rights policy that he will not endorse alcohol, junk food or sports betting because he wants to be a role model for children, and he takes this role seriously. Here he is on the French television show Au Tableau, being asked the tough questions.
Pour vous, la religion, elle a quelle place dans le foot?
La place qu'on veut lui donner. Chacun a une façon propre de voir la religion.
Parce que des fois, on voit des joueurs quand ils célèbrent.
Oui. Après, ça, c'est personnel. Moi, personnellement, je suis pas quelqu'un qui montre beaucoup. Donc, je vais pas faire ça. Mais s'il y en a qui aiment bien exhiber leur religion, c'est leur choix et ça, faut le respecter.
Est-ce que vous êtes croyant?
Oui.
Et est-ce que vous êtes pratiquant?
Oui, quand même.
Et vous êtes de quelle confession?
Chrétienne.
Mbappe might be private with his faith, but religion has been on full display in this tournament, and Qatar's Islamic way of life is challenged more than the sponsors. Homosexuality is illegal in Qatar. It prompted the captains of 7 European teams to pledge to wear rainbow armbands during the tournament to promote LGBTQ rights. But after facing heat from FIFA, none of them did. Germany instead covered their mouths before their historic loss to Japan. That wasn't the only U-turn in this tournament. At the 11th hour, Qatar banned alcohol in the vicinity of the stadiums. As if to equalise, FIFA decided very late in the piece to allow rainbow hats and flags inside stadiums. Let's call it the FIFA Tango, this delicate, difficult dance FIFA finds itself performing. You see, in 2017 it adopted a human rights policy prohibiting discrimination of any kind on the basis of race, gender, religion or sexual orientation. But what happens when the rights of these groups or moral absolutes clash? Whose rights prevail? Who wins? At the start of the tournament, the head of Qatar's World Cup organising committee, Hassan Al-Thawadi, put it this way.
For the teams to come and preach or make statements, that's fine. But what you're essentially saying is you're protesting an Islamic country hosting an event. Where does that end? Does that mean no Islamic country can never be able to participate in anything?
These are the tough discussions any broad church must have. And the House of Football is playing catch up.
The Socceroos might have departed Qatar after the round of 16, but one Australian is still front and centre until the final whistle. Jenny Lee van Gelder is the Director of Ceremonies for Qatar 2022. Well, Jenny Lee, this is quite incredible. Here we are in Doha. Who would have thought that the opening ceremony and closing ceremony of the Qatar 2022 World Cup is being done by an Aussie? How'd you get the gig?
Well, I think I got the gig through my history of working in large ceremonies around the world, which I've had the privilege of doing. I've been very lucky. I had a great history in my early career working with some terrific Australian talent, and I think that's the reason that things happen.
And there's Aussies everywhere in this kind of space.
Absolutely. I've got quite a few Australians here with me as well, and there's quite a few who have taken leadership roles here. But I think the joy of coming to different countries around the world to do this, I mean, I've had, as I said, the privilege to work in many countries on projects of a similar nature, is that you get to meet unbelievable talent in each country, and you get to take them with you on the journey.
And so, with a ceremony, what is it that you want to leave people with? And I guess it's different things to different audiences, because
Absolutely.
You've got an international audience,
Yep.
but you've also very much got a local audience.
Yep.
And how do you juggle that? And
Yep.
you know, when you walk away, when it's all done, what do you hope you've achieved?
I think for the country, pride is important. I think that's got to be something that they feel. I think from an audience within the stadium, they need to feel like they've been somewhere and they've had a journey. And I think they need to see also the fun. That was really important, to be able to have some fun during the process. And that's a very difficult thing to portray on the field of play. And then you have to translate that to the broadcast audience, which is billions of people, I believe. We try not to tell too many people that we all get too nervous, but it's a completely different medium. So, you know, it has to be entertaining, visually entertaining. And we took a chance this time when we brought in a specific director to be able to film it, which was quite challenging for a sporting event, as you know, because we had to bring in a whole suite, and we had to have all our own rehearsals. We had to bring in specific cameras, which is very difficult on a field of play. Doing anything for sport is very complicated. You know, we've got 5 metres between the sideline and the touchline, and no one's allowed to go on the field of play, you know, blah, 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 blah. So even just trying to manage to get those moments, you know, seeing Laib fly up into the air, you know, it's a piece of magic that can go terribly wrong if it's not done properly. Yeah. And even on the night, you don't know if it's going to work. You know, we had wind blowers and all sorts of things trying to make that work. So there were lots of moments that can or cannot be successful. And who walks past but someone of importance? We're ready to get going. Did we all think we were going to make it? Who knows? You know, you just don't know. It's a challenge. It really is a challenge. I don't think you ever go into anything thinking this is going to be everything I hoped for. You go in thinking, have I done enough? Is there anything more I can do? You know, did I make the right decisions? Like, all of those things, they stir within you.
Well, look, I've got to let you get back to work. You've got a big event.
We do have a big event.
Yeah, so it's been really great to catch up. Well, let's talk about the final four that have made it to the pointy end of the World Cup, because each of these nations has given us something really unique. Sam Lewis joins me now. Sam, why don't we start with Croatia and Morocco? I mean, these two teams, just their own story is so incredible.
Absolutely. Two of the nations who have some of the smallest footballing populations that you can think of have made it all the way to the semi-finals of the World Cup. Morocco really are the sort of dream fairy tale team, I think, of this whole tournament. A population scattered around the world, a population of a really fascinating diaspora, coming up against France, the nation that had colonised them in the past, and pushing them really all the way to the very end as well. They're a nation that overcame Belgium, ranked second in the world. They defeated Spain and Portugal on the way to this semi-final, and they really brought the entire African, Asian and Arab world along with them. They were the first nation from Africa to get all the way to this point of a World Cup, and the first Arab nation to do so as well. And Tracey, you and I saw in Doha the huge support that poured out of not just fans from Morocco, but fans from all across the Middle East coming towards this particular national team and everything that they represent. So even though they didn't make it all the way to the final, they did the African nation, the continent, they did the Arab world so proud. And in Croatia's case as well, considering the population of just under half of New South Wales, it's kind of extraordinary that this is a national team that's made it this far in 2 consecutive World Cups. They didn't quite make the final this time around. They got quite decently dealt with by Argentina, who many people are expecting to take out the entire thing. But just another example of what happens when you've got a really solid structure and a community of athletes and footballers and administrators who all work towards achieving the same goal. So both nations are a really good example that Australia in particular can look to in terms of utilising what they have and trying to move forward together.
All right, let's look at the finalists. And, you know, again, each of them, it doesn't really matter who wins. These two are just so deserving, France and Argentina.
Absolutely. France, of course, are the reigning champions. They won in Russia in 2018. But as we've been speaking about over the course of this tournament, this really is a tournament for Argentina. This World Cup is for Argentina, and it's for their talisman, their captain, Lionel Messi. This is going to be his last ever World Cup. He's 35 years old and has arguably been the best player over the course of this tournament in Qatar as well. He has led this team. He has brought them on his back and dragged them forward, and they have one of the most extraordinary turnouts in terms of fans as well. Not just Argentinians who've flown across the sea to support them, but also a number of people who across the world just love this nation because of what this man has done for them. It's going to be a really fantastic game of football. I personally really want the fairy tale career sort of storyline of Lionel Messi to reach its crescendo with this World Cup. It's the one trophy that he doesn't have in his vast, heavily stacked sort of trophy cabinet back at home. It would be a fantastic way to end a career that has truly redefined what football is in the modern world. So it's going to be a really great clash between two really fantastic nations, and the only two nations that happen to beat Australia on the way to this pointy end of the tournament. So it should be a really fantastic game.
Do you have anything to say about France, Sam?
Look, I absolutely respect France. I think that they've definitely overcome the consecutive championship sort of hurdle as well. Traditionally, nations that win the World Cup tend to fall out of form in the following tournament, but they've really shown that they have something serious about them, and particularly coming into a tournament where they had so many injuries, so many setbacks and so much drama off the field, they've really rallied, and they've been able to dig deep into their stocks and find a team that really works together and works hard for each other. It's been a really fantastic tournament for Kylian Mbappe, of course, a dazzling young winger from PSG, but it's also been a really great opportunity to remember players like Olivier Giroud, who a lot of people thought was on the periphery of the French national team, but came in to replace Karim Benzema, the Ballon d'Or winner, and Antoine Griezmann as well, the absolute midfield maestro who's been pulling the strings for France all throughout this tournament as well. So again, two teams who are really tournament hardened. They know what it takes to get to this point. They have some dazzling players, some of the best players in the world, including the two teammates on PSG in Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi. So it really is a clash of the titans, and hopefully it's going to live up to the billing.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Sam Lewis, thank you so much for your contributions during Ticket to Qatar. And of course, thank you for watching. It's been quite a journey. This is Tracey Holmes in Doha for one final time.